Welcome to Brixton. My name's Jessica and I'm one of the guides for Free Tours by Foot London. And today I'm here south of the river in Brixton. Brixton is a really famous part of London, known for music, arts, culture and food, particularly of the Afro-Caribbean populations. Brixton is about 40% Jamaican and other Caribbean, people of other Caribbean heritage. And that's what makes it such an exciting and delicious place to be. Now the tour today, we're gonna be walking through some history, some arts. We're also gonna walk through 3 covered markets that Brixton's famous for, including Reliance Arcade, Market Row, and Brixton Village. We're gonna sample some food, drink some coffee, talk about beer and rum. But first, I wanted to point out the Ritzy. The Ritzy started as the Electric Pavilion. Keep that in your mind, the word electric, because it's gonna come up on this tour. Today, it's an art house cinema. On the walk today, we're going to be talking a lot about the cultural history of Brixton. And if you like this sort of thing, you should like and subscribe. Also, if you wanted to leave me a tip for being your tour guide today, you can do so below. You can buy me a coffee. You can also use PayPal. I'm jessicatourguide@gmail.com. We're going to head first to the Black Cultural Archives. Right now, we're walking across Windrush Square. That's a relatively new name. This square used to be called Ephra Square and was known for its grand Georgian houses. However, the name Windrush comes from the first boat to bring over 1,000 Jamaican and Trinidadian immigrants to Essex in 1948. 1,027 to be exact, plus 2 stowaways from Jamaica. These folks were coming because they were told that they were needed. They were part of the British Commonwealth and they were coming to rebuild London after the Blitz and after World War II. Subsequent generations throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s are also referred to as the Windrush because that was the name of the first boat that came here. We're standing in front of the Black Cultural Archives. If you want to learn about Black history in the UK, this is the place to come. Brixton is known for its Black and minority ethnic owned businesses. In the UK, we tend to use the term BAME or Black and minority ethnic, although not everybody likes that term, so it's always important to ask what people prefer. The whole area is known for supporting Black owned shops, businesses and restaurants, and history is really important to Brixton. That's why it's worth coming here. It's a free museum. Come and spend a couple of hours, learn about the history of the area before you set out walking through the markets. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. However, I've been talking about Caribbean immigration. Of Brixton's population of 80,000, roughly 40% are of Caribbean origin. However, there's lots of other people here from Africa, particularly Ethiopia, as well as one of the largest immigrant groups in the area, Colombian. People from Colombia represent the largest South American population in the UK. 20,000 originally Colombian people live in Brixton and the surrounding areas. So we're gonna have our first stop today, not trying Jamaican food, we will later on, but we're gonna go to a Colombian bakery, so follow me. What should I have? Is this, yeah, arepa, right? Yeah, arepa. Arepa con queso. My Spanish accent is terrible. I'll have arepa con queso, please.
Take it away.
Yeah. So arepa is a cornmeal pancake. Yeah, please, a cornmeal pancake. It's filled with, it can be meat, it can be beans, it can be cheese, and it's also sweetened with cane sugar syrup. So it's kind of like sweet, savory, that really amazing combination that makes you just want to keep eating more and more. So that's what I've just ordered. So it's nice and hot. Nice corn. Check out that cheese. It's like a sweet and savory cornbread. It's really good. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, oddly enough, kettle corn, which is a sweet and salty popcorn. And that's because it has that nice corn flavor from the corn flour. It's got the salty cheese, it's got the sugarcane syrup, so it's really a perfect snack. It's an excellent way to start our walk. Now, as I mentioned, Brixton is really known for Caribbean food, for things like jerk chicken and patties that we're going to talk about later on, but don't neglect the Colombian food when you're in Brixton or the rest of the borough. So later on, we're actually going to cross the street a bit later and we're going to walk through the entrance of Reliance Arcade. This is a really remarkable Art Deco building that was just restored, and the restoration was completed in 2019. Because later on we're going to be entering right up close, you won't get a view of the facade, so I wanted to show it to you now. The big rainbow. On the other side that we're going to see later on, it's got an Egyptian motif, popular in Art Deco. We're just coming past Morley's, which is a historic department store. There's actually 8 of them throughout London. This one here, built in 1897. Nice to see kind of independent London-based chains still thriving, still surviving. And here in Brixton, one thing that you are going to notice is that there are a lot of independent shops and businesses. In fact, this is the only place I've ever seen a Starbucks go out of business. If you look across the street, you can see right below the underground there, lots of posters, big wooden sign. Yeah, that used to say Starbucks coffee. But because people in Brixton really feel strongly about supporting the local economy, the local businesses, went out of business. Pretty rare to see that. But we're just going to take a right here on, or rather a left on Tunstall Road. We're going to have a look at a mural of one of Brixton's most famous sons. And that is here, the mural of David Bowie. So normally when you see a mural covered in glass or plexiglass, it's a Banksy, right? Well, this one is not by an artist that is as famous as Banksy, but still really important London artist called AKA Jimmy C, or James Cochran. If you watched our East End street art tour, which I think you should, you'll see a lot of pieces by Jimmy C. We see a lot of them on that tour. But this is probably his most famous because it's become an official memorial for David Bowie that is protected by the council. This was completed actually 3 years before Bowie passed away, and the reason why Jimmy C put it here is because David Bowie is from just a few streets away from here. This is one of Bowie's most famous images, of course, Aladdin Sane from the cover of one of his albums, and this has become a major shrine for people who want to pay homage to the great rock star himself, the great androgynous weirdo, and you know, we need more weirdos. So I wanted to show you guys this piece before we cross the street in towards Brixton Village and the Brixton markets. This massive piece of street art, it's a portrait of Michelle Obama, and it was done by a London street artist called Dreff. You can see his name signed just in the corner there. His full name is Nikkei Dreff Desane, and he is a Londoner. Actually not born in London, but he's an East Londoner now. His parents are from Ghana originally, and he creates fantastic street art depicting Black and other people of color throughout London who've made an impact. Also just people that are kind of average people living their lives, making change through small actions. This, a little bit different than that. Okay, Michelle Obama, not a Londoner, not a Brixton resident. Dreff did this in order to promote Michelle Obama's biography that came out autobiography that came out a couple of years ago. And I think it fits really well here into Brixton. We're gonna see some other works by him as we walk along. So let's head this way. We're going to cross over Brixton Road in just a moment, and we're going to start heading down Atlantic Avenue. You may, if you know the area well, you may be fretting and thinking, oh my goodness, Jessica walked right past a few really important places, but don't worry, we're going to be walking back and looping through. If you're coming to Brixton on one of our tours, or if you're coming on your own, you can kind of follow my route because it makes sure that you don't end up doubling back on yourself. So at the beginning of our tour, I talked a little bit about the Windrush generation in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, giving Brixton its really distinct Caribbean feeling, which is obviously still all around us today. But what was in Brixton before that? Well, in the 1880s, 1890s, Brixton was the place to be. If you were late Victorian middle class, this area was known for its electric lighting, which was not common on streets at the time. And it was also known for one of London's most elaborate and exciting department stores called the Bon Marché, named after the famous Bon Marché department store in Paris. So people were moving here in droves to have a place where you could have a big parcel of land, a large house. However, even by the 1910s, 20s, 30s, things were really changing, and it changed dramatically in World War II. Brixton was bombed heavily, and after World War II, a lot of those grand houses that had been middle class houses started getting chopped into smaller and smaller flats, and this left it kind of ripe to become a place for a lot of immigrants to live because you had affordable flats and places to live. Now let's go back though to the 1890s. 1891, you have this street here becoming the first in the UK to have electric lighting, which doesn't seem like a big deal now, but it was really dazzling for residents, and people came from all over London to come and look at this brightly lit street. That's where the name comes from. However, you might recognize the name Electric Avenue from a different context, and I would bet that it's from a song. The song is called Electric Avenue by legendary reggae artist Eddie Grant. Eddie Grant wrote this song in reaction to a series of riots that occurred in Brixton in 1981, and Grant went on to write the song in 1982. What was the cause of the riots? Something called stop and search that had been implemented, and local residents started noticing that the police could stop someone for being suspicious. They're often called sus laws. People noticed that it was mostly black teenagers who were being stopped and searched as opposed to anybody else. There was rising tensions from this, and then there was a house fire in nearby New Cross. People thought that it was pretty suspicious, and 13 young black people died in that fire. This brought everything to a head, and the riots began in the area. Eddie Grant was really horrified by the violence and the police treatment of Brixton people, and that's when he wrote the song, which would go on to become incredibly famous. But a lot of people don't realize that it actually has this really sad and violent episode at its core. Now, Electric Avenue that we're walking down now today, as you can see, a lot of amazing street stalls selling all kinds of fruits, vegetables, meats, fish, gorgeous Jamaican patties and food at Healthy Eaters, herbal treatments, and it is a place to come and do your shopping. People still come here, meet here. A lot of the vendors and traders here, they're second, third, even fourth generation Electric Avenue traders. I'm gonna buy some little white eggplants because I need them for a dish I'm about to make. Can I get about 10 of these guys, please? Thank you very much. Bye. I got my white eggplants. I'm happy. I'm gonna make some curry with this. When the street markets started in the 1890s through to the 1910s, 20s, they mostly sold, potatoes, carrots, cauliflower, things that average British households ate. But as you can see today, it's changed with the demographic of the area. So it's a lot of really gorgeous tropical fruits and vegetables that are used in African and Caribbean cooking. But of course, it's a great place for anybody to come shopping. Good prices, friendly atmosphere, really wide selection, all kinds of cool stuff. Heading back out onto Brixton Road, don't worry, I'm not turned around. I'm just going to take us a different way. Now we're going to go into Reliance Arcade, which I pointed out when we were crossing the street. Reliance Arcade was very nearly lost, very nearly redeveloped and rebuilt. However, that was in the late 2010s. But now it has a heritage protection. It's grade 2 listed, so it would be almost impossible to demolish or alter this building. We're going to talk more about how the markets were under threat, but for now I want to walk us through Reliance Arcade. We're going to see lots of interesting local shops selling fabrics, selling greeting cards, selling coffee, delicious Ethiopian food, so let's walk through. The covered arcade was originally built in the 1920s, and you can actually see that parts of the original Georgian houses that were here still make up the exterior. But it's a really narrow little arcade. It kind of reminds me of the ones that are in central London. Thank you. Like Burlington Arcade. It reminds me a lot of the similar arcades that you'll find throughout Paris as well. You can see you've got all kinds of really useful places, travel agent, lots of shops selling clothing, and beautiful West African and East African fabrics. Also really nice Egyptian food, beauty salons. I think I just said Egyptian food, I meant Ethiopian food. Now you can see, I mentioned earlier that we would be able to see the Egyptian facade. So here's the really the iconic Egyptian facade of the Reliance Arcade. Again, this was nearly demolished, but it's been shown to have immeasurable heritage value to Brixton. It was originally built in the late 1920s, and that's of course when Egyptian motifs were really, really popular, and it was the first of the covered markets in the area. We're going to go into another one of the covered markets right now, which is Market Row, just across the street. Market Row was built a few years later, and the idea was to make it even bigger, even brighter. You're going to see a really big difference between these two. They have similar kinds of traders, although this one has more fresh fruits, vegetables, fish and meat, but it is a much larger scale. Market Row is bright, it's airy. It reminds me a lot of different covered markets that I've seen around the world. And again, it's pretty amazing that it has survived. It was seriously under threat in the late 2000s, the aughts. The whole area, this and Brixton Village, which was then called Granville Arcade, were meant to be demolished, or not demolished, but renovated in a way that made people in the area feel really, really worried. They were told that their shops and stalls would close for at least a year, and the unwritten kind of message was that the rents were going to skyrocket. And as a result, the whole area would lose its really traditional Afro-Caribbean feel. And residents fought back, and surprisingly, they were successful. They managed to save it, and it has a grade 2 heritage listing, which means that it cannot be altered in any significant way. So from the moment I woke up this morning, I've been waiting for this moment, which is to get a really good Ethiopian coffee. Ethiopian coffee is some of the finest coffee in the world. People who really feel strongly about coffee, really big kind of coffee fanatics, know that Ethiopian coffee is really one of the most flavorful and robust coffees that there is, and it's got kind of a fruity flavor as well. So we're here inside the Ethiopian coffee shop Addis in Brixton, and we're gonna grab a freshly brewed espresso made with Ethiopian beans. She's just telling me everything is unique. This is how they use the cup back at home in Ethiopia.
What you drink, what you're going to drink.
I'm gonna.
Cold. You've got chef.
In that area there in Ethiopia,
The area
this particular coffee.
Amazing.
One of the big.
Okay, I just want them to come to my house every morning and make me my first cup of coffee. It's delicious. It doesn't need any sugar, it doesn't need any cream, even if that's how you normally take your coffee. It's got a flavor that you're not gonna get at a Starbucks. That's why it went out of business. Cheers. All right, after that coffee, I'm feeling hungry again. So I'm gonna go to First Choice Bakers and I'm gonna get a Jamaican patty. First Choice Bakers opened up here in Brixton in 1995 and it's considered some of the best patties in the entire capital. So I'm gonna grab one, I'll let you know how it is. So I just got a Jamaican patty from First Choice, just patty. The crust is made yellow with turmeric or with egg yolk, depending on where you go. And these actually have their origin in Cornwall, Cornish pasty. But it's not a pasty, it's a patty. Cornish miners went to Jamaica to work in the mines in the 1840s and the 1850s, and this is what they would take in their lunch. They would be able to have this in their pocket, keep it nice and warm all day, and inside you've got delicious flavors. Now the Cornish would have had, you know, meats and stew, but over time in Jamaica added lots of Jamaican flavors to cater to the local population, in particular the magic of the Scotch bonnet pepper. I just got a veggie patty. Yesterday I had a chicken one. Let's taste it. It's so good. It's so good. Let's go. So when I got the patty, I wanted to get something else too, but they are all sold out of it until 4 o'clock today. It's called Guinness Punch. It's kind of like a chocolatey milkshake made with Guinness. Really popular in Jamaica, and they normally sell it in nice bottles, but sold out. We're heading into Pope's Road right now, and we've got another piece by Dreff. So remember we talked about Dreff, he did the Michelle Obama earlier. We've got this one here of Michael Johns. So Michael Johns was a local legend, local hero. He was the caretaker and guardian of the public toilets here, a really big part of the community. So Dreff wanted to make sure that he was immortalized as the local legend that he is. So you see a lot of pieces by Dreff on these kinds of themes and topics. You don't think about, you know, somebody being the guardian of a toilet as maybe being the most important job, but it really is. Just think about it. You got to provide security, cleanliness, and it's a basic human need, so actually deserves a lot of credit. Got some Afghan street food. Brixton is a place where, yeah, of course, you can find Colombian food and Jamaican food, Trinidadian food, African food, but you can also find food from all over the world as well. We're going to see that in a few minutes because we still have not gone into one of the most famous parts of the market, which is the village. Just wanted to point out Pop Brixton here. This is something you're seeing pop up, no pun intended, all over London, is kind of food trucks and food courts made out of shipping containers, and that's what's here. They do events, they do, you know, you can watch the rugby, etc., but they've also got lots of different street food vendors, and it's kind of a place to come and party, open till late at night. So another cool addition, pretty new as well. All along Brixton Road here, we've got more street market behind us. You can see people queuing up for some good Jamaican food. It's lunchtime. Massive, big Brixton Recreation Centre, but we are going to walk down past all of these railway arches. All right, so I can't pass by this mural by Create Not Destroy without pointing out some of the really fascinating Brixton history that's depicted in each of the letters here. First of all, we've got the Brixton Academy, which started out as a massive movie palace just around the corner. Now it's a huge gig venue. I've seen some great gigs there. If you ever see a band that you like playing there, buy tickets. But here on the marquee, we've got Skunk Anansie. Skunk Anansie were kind of like a rock punk metal band in the 90s. I loved listening to them. And the lead singer, Skin, a black woman, and she's from Brixton. So she's immortalized right here. One other thing it's important to mention is the Brixton Pound, which we can just see in the corner. Brixton is the only community in the world to have its own community currency dispensed with a dedicated ATM, dispensed with a dedicated cash point. So these days, the Brixton Pound, I think the 10-pound note features David Bowie. Other famous Brixtonites are on the different bills. Today, it's moving more into a cryptocurrency vibe, but it's still a currency that you can use at Brixton shops and restaurants. I think more than 200 participate. Of course, next here we've got the Ritzy and Bowie, who we've already talked about. Here's something important to mention. Cherry Gross, 8185. Cherry Gross was shot by police in 1985, a local Brixton black woman, and this kicked off the 1985 Brixton riots in the area. We've also got a few up here it says, who is Olive Morris, with a question mark. She was a black Caribbean member of the Windrush generation who organized in Brixton, a lot of community organizing. She was a member of the British Black Panthers and immortalized here in the mural. And of course, we've got Electric Avenue, and then I Love Brixton and the Windrush. So much history encompassed in one small mural. All right, so those of you who've been on any of my tours, or if you plan to come on my tours, you know I am a craft beer nerd. I love craft beer. I like a lot of different kinds of beer, but I really love microbreweries and interesting people that are coming together to create unique beer using hops from the UK and from around the world. And that can certainly be said about Brixton Brewery. You can get Brixton Brewery beer now all across the country, but of course it's often served here in the area at different pubs and tap rooms. The Brixton Brewery tap room, sadly, it's closed right now. It opens at 5 p.m., but it was started in 2013 by two couples working together, and they decided that they were both passionate about beer and they wanted to bring it kind of modern craft beer to Brixton. And here it is. Here you'll see this symbol all around London. If you are in pubs, definitely give them a try. Their IPA is fantastic. So it doesn't take long once you leave the markets and the station road for things to get really residential. Brixton is an amazing place to live. It has lots of parks, it has obviously the gorgeous markets and beautiful old houses. But you can see here what I was talking about earlier. These grand, large houses were built as single family homes in the 1880s and 1890s. But by the 1950s, 60s, 70s, they had been split up into really small rooming houses and flats. And today, some of them still remain flats. A few of them, for the lucky few, are single family homes, but a lot of them have been kind of split up into maybe 2, 3, 4 units, and this is where a lot of local people live. We talked a little bit about typical houses that people live in Brixton, but here is another typical style of houses for the UK and for Brixton, but okay, it's not that typical. Have a look at this design. You would be forgiven for thinking this looks really, really strange, but I promise you the design is actually genius, but the rest of the project was never completed. Let me tell you what I mean. This was built between 1979 and 1981 by an architect, a female architect called Magda Borowiecka. And Magda Borowiecka was given a brief that she needed to design a block of council estates or housing in order to exist next to a massive viaduct. a massive piece of raised motorway that was supposed to run right down the center of this street. So just imagine that this whole street behind me, across the street, this would have been a huge raised, loud, crazy, noisy, polluting viaduct. As you can see, it was never built. But this council estate design was built to coexist with that viaduct. So can you see the tiny windows and the kind of big wall? Yeah, this is called Southwick House, but locals nicknamed it something else, the Barrier Block. Barrier Block. The name makes so much sense. It was originally supposed to be a barrier to the viaduct that was never built. For a lot of years, it was kind of reviled and it appeared on, worst architecture in the UK, worst architecture in the world. But some of you might know brutalism is kind of coming back into style. This is late brutalism and it has its fans these days. Whether you love it or you hate it, Magda Morawiecka did the best she could with the design brief that she was given. Still on Cold Harbour Lane where the Barrier Block is, but I wanted to point out this Walton Lodge sanitary steam laundry. Of course, with a building as cool as this, it wasn't just going to sit vacant or be demolished. Inside, it's actually quite a posh restaurant now called, you guessed it, Laundry. It's quite a shabby chic place. But it sits right next to the Brixton Village, one of the Brixton Village entrances. You'll find these signs throughout Brixton on the different streets. Some of them say Brixton, some of them say Black Lives Matter, some of them say BAME owned business. BAME stands for Black and Minority Ethnic. But this is the best definition that I could give for Brixton, so let's just read it right off the side. Originating from Brickestane, meaning the stone of Brixie, a Saxon lord. The global melting pot of South London with an African Caribbean soul where music, arts, culture, and food mix. Thank you. Brilliant. I can't do it better. Let's head into Brixton Village. Now, until a couple of years ago, Brixton Village was actually called Granville Arcade, and this is the third of the 3 different arcades that we're visiting on our tour today. We've already visited Reliance Arcade right at the beginning of our tour. Then we went to Market Row. That's where we had that great Ethiopian coffee. And now we're heading into formerly Granville Arcade, these days known as Brixton Village. Again, this was nearly completely restructured, partially demolished and rebuilt back in 2007, 2008, but the local residents fought back, and these days it is mostly kind of restaurants, but there's still some traditional market stalls. Brixton Village is divided into avenues. You can see here on the sign we're on the corner of 6th Avenue and 2nd Avenue, and it's because it's actually quite a large covered structure. You can see a tap room by Brixton Village selling local craft beer. You could grab some Brixton beer there. But I wanted to point out a couple of things here. We've got Oracle's Juice Bar, and next door we've got Ooh-Wee. This shows you a couple of different vegan offerings in Brixton Market. Now, a lot of times vegan food gets lumped in as being trendy, new, a recent thing. That's absolutely not true. A lot of cultures around the world naturally eat vegan, whether they're doing it on purpose for religious reasons or whether it's just simply the crops and types of food that grow in the area. And Jamaica is one of those places where you have a really thriving vegan food culture called Ital food, which comes from the word vital. Rastafarians believe that they should be eating and treating their bodies as if it is a temple. And Ital food uses fresh, natural ingredients, little oil, no salt, and it's mostly, if not 100% vegan. And so that's where you've got something like Oracle Juice Bar. And then next door, you've got a little bit more of a trendy, newer version of vegan food, Ooey, which sells kind of vegan burgers and milkshakes and things like that. So Before you start thinking, oh, all this vegan stuff is all brand new, it's absolutely not. People all over the world have been eating this way for millennia. I wanted to point out here Disrupt Space, which is a Black creative arts agency, and they represent Black artists. They do events here. So even though Brixton Market is now got shops and restaurants and cultures from all over the world, there is a lot of effort to ensure that Black owned businesses remain at the heart of the market. So as you can see, Brixton Market has changed over the years, or Brixton Village as I can say. Not only has the name changed, but alongside the African, Caribbean, Colombian grocers and shops, you also have businesses and restaurants from all over the world. So it is kind of a melting pot, a mixing pot, and these days, the market, this part of the market, Brixton Village, is open until 11 p.m. and that's to represent the fact that there are so many bars and restaurants here, so you can come and have a full night out, get nice food and nice drinks. We're going to walk back down this way and check out Rice Wings and Tings. So one of my favorite places to eat when I'm in Brixton is Fish Wings and Tings, and you can see from how busy it is that I'm not alone. It is one of the most popular places to get food, and one of the things you can get there, of course, is fabulous jerk chicken. There's plenty of other dishes in Jamaican cuisine, like saltfish and ackee, which is traditionally eaten for breakfast, all kinds of curries and stews. My favorite is brown stewed chicken. I also love curry goat, but jerk chicken is probably the most famous Jamaican dish. And what to jerk means is to cover in spices and roast over pimento wood fire, over low and slow coals, so that you get really delicious food, kind of flavored by that smoke, by those spices. But the word jerk has come to mean get lost somewhere in British culture in the last couple of years. I remember seeing a few years ago the London's Afro-Caribbean community was really laughing and having a good laugh at the fact that I think it was Jamie Oliver brand started selling jerk rice. You can't jerk rice. You can't cover rice in spices and then roast it over low coals. I mean, I guess you could try, but a lot of times people these days have taken the word jerk to mean the flavor, which is a delicious flavor, but it actually refers to the cooking method. So yeah, you can't jerk rice. But if you are in Brixton, definitely check out Fish Wings and Tings or one of the other many wonderful Jamaican restaurants that are here. So after tasting some Ethiopian coffee, Jamaican patty, and Colombian baked goods, now it is the end of our tour. I really hope that you guys enjoyed walking through Brixton's markets and culture as much as I enjoyed showing you. Please, the next time you come to London, let us know if you would like to come on one of our Brixton tours. We'd be more than happy to show you around. Remember to like and subscribe to this video and watch some of our other videos about street art, about London culture, about markets. We have a lot to show you. So again, thank you very much and bye-bye.